Dr. Ilka on Planen Bauen 4.0.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me okay. If not, please give me a shout. Yes, sorry I can't be in Dublin in person. Lufthansa is on strike, and so my flights got cancelled on very short notice, unfortunately. Anyway, this talk today is about the German roadmap and the journey to BIM. Before I start, I'd like to introduce myself. So my name is Ilka, and in February this year, I was appointed as chairman or co-chairman of this just newly started organization, which is called Planen Bauen 4.0, that is Design and Construct 4.0, which is an organization for the digitization of design, construction and operations. And for now, for the moment, just see that as the equivalent to the UK BIM task group. It has a huge difference, but I'll come to that in a second. So in the other 50% of my time, I'm still an associate director at Arup. I joined Arup in 2007 in London, and I transferred back to Germany, where I'm originally from, in 2012. During my time in London, I was able to work on very exciting and fantastic projects, such as the Olympic Park design, Crossrail, High Speed 2, and a couple of others. And also in 2013, I was asked by the Arup board to lead a small team of 6 to implement the global Arup strategy in Arup. So that's a company with 30,000 people globally, 38 countries, 196 offices or so, and they wanted to have one unique BIM strategy implemented. And from all these previous experiences, I gained a lot of very valuable experience to bring back to Germany, because Germany is now at a point where the UK has been really in 2010 probably. So we are 5 to 6 years behind, and now we're playing catching up. And this is the content of my talk, so I'll now start sharing my screen with you, and then I hope you can see that all right again. If not, please shout out. Is that coming through okay? I can't hear anything, so I'll just carry on. So before I start explaining our roadmap and where we're at, I would like to talk a little bit and share some thoughts with you around 4.0. So you may have heard of Industry 4.0, which is a very strong manufacturing industry push towards digitization in Germany. And there is a reason why we called our new organization also 4.0. So why 4.0? What does that actually mean? That's not a random number. So the number 4.0 stands for the 4th Industrial Revolution. And that is the revolution of digitization. And I think we can all tell from our daily lives that digitization is now really beginning to have a disruptive effect on our lives and our working and social environment. And now with the Internet of Things and other modern technologies that facilitate fundamental improvements to the industrial processes involved in manufacturing, engineering, material usage, supply chain, life cycle management, and all that. This is where Germany embarked on this journey to digitization, very much pushed by the manufacturing industry. But now we are starting to ask ourselves, what is this industrial revolution actually doing to the construction industry? Because when you just look at the nature of a revolution, it is always this very quick and very disruptive change that's happening now. And people respond differently to change. So when you ask around normally who wants change, and change often comes with the promise of greater efficiency, reduced costs, higher quality, something will change to the better. And then everyone wants change. But when you start implementing change and you ask who wants to change, and who wants to work differently tomorrow, then we see that people are very often very reluctant to change their behavior, and the work and the procedures they are used to. And that is human nature. And we see that very often in many areas. And this is why also from the experience I mentioned earlier, from the Olympics, but mostly from the Arup strategy implementation, we looked at change management. And I would like to share a theory from you that we took from change management, which we found extremely helpful. So when you go back into your organizations, wherever you come from, it might help you as well, and that's why I want to share it with you. So the very basic theory is that when you have an incentive, a vision, an action plan, the skills and the resources, you have a chance to achieve change. However, if you're lacking the incentive, or if people don't understand why they should change, then they're unwilling to change. If people are lacking the vision, if that has not been communicated well enough, or maybe there is no vision, then we get confused because we don't know where this road is going and leading to. If we don't have a good action plan, then normally we see a lot of duplication, we see a lot of waste, and we see that we can't prioritize our action very well. Also, it makes it a lot harder to delegate. If we're lacking skills, then people get anxious. And if we're lacking resources, people normally get frustrated. And in my current role as this task group leader in Germany, I talk to a lot of people, and I very often encounter these negative emotions in the red boxes there. And that simple theory here helps me to understand where we need to get better, where we need to communicate better, or what we need to develop. That's why I wanted to share that with you. Anyway, now change is coming. I think everyone now understands that things are changing, and just waiting until BIM and digitization goes away is not the best response. I think everyone realizes that. However, let's have a look at the construction industry in Germany and some numbers. It is a massive, massive industry. It is the numbers compared to other industrial nations. So in 2014, the construction industry was responsible for 290 billion euro turnover. That was about 10% of GDP. And the industry employs about 2.5 million people. That's about, again, 6% of the labor force in Germany. However, there are some really alarming trends, and these numbers are from these statistics from German numbers. However, when we compare them to global trends, they show the same trend, which is a decline in productivity globally by person. And the construction industry is the only industry that shows this negative trend that you can see here in the green line. So all the other industries are improving and increasing in productivity per head. Some organizations, such as Accenture in this example, they look at the degree of digitization and compare that across different industries. And the construction industry comes up at second last. And at the very top, you see there's telecoms and media and IT, automotive and others. And again, when the third industrial revolution happened, the change to IT, we have not adjusted our processes. We are still using the old processes. Maybe we're using new tools, but we have not really implemented IT in our industry, not even to talk about the fourth revolution, digitization. Now, looking at this, the situation in Germany, unfortunately, I can't ask you to raise your hands, but I won't see it. But I'm sure that most people in the room will have heard about this very, very embarrassing story of the Berlin airport. So Germany as a country is not able to deliver an airport terminal on time and budget. So the airport was before opening, which is normally the time when you have maybe the last few test runs of some systems, or you're polishing the mirrors or something like that. But at that time, the fire system failed to get final approval. Oh, so they pushed back the opening date by 4 weeks, and then by another 4 weeks. And that, I think, is now 3 years ago, and or even longer. And we don't have a new opening date yet. And we're not talking about costs. It's absolutely embarrassing, and it is amazing, and it's really, you can't explain what happened. But let me share something else with you. It's not the only major project that has gone horribly wrong recently. So we have a concert hall in Hamburg, and we have a central train station in Stuttgart, and we don't seem to be able to deliver projects to the magic triangle of quality, time, and cost anymore. So what this has caused is a reaction from politics, very top level. So the Ministry for Transport and Digital Infrastructure, they've put a committee in place. It's called the Reform Committee Major Projects. That's 35 people, supported by 7 expert panels. And they were asked to review the situation and to come back with a clear action plan of what needs to change so that Germany comes back on track when it comes to delivering major projects. And the report was launched in June this year, after 2 years. So this committee, they came back and said, we need to completely change everything. We need a cultural change in this industry. We need to change almost everything. And so we're not very good, for example, at the very early stages of a project, doing feasibility studies, needs analysis and things like that, economic feasibility studies. The working environment is confrontative rather than collaborative, and lots of different, various things they found. And one of the 10 very clear recommendations from this committee was an increased and better use of digital technologies and methods, for example, BIM. So now here we are. There was a recommendation, and then what happened then was they wanted to introduce, and this is from a press release in 2014, they were thinking about introducing a BIM task group, very similar to the UK BIM task group. However, after a while they realized in Germany, for whatever reason, which I can't explain and I don't understand, it's not possible to have a government-funded and supported task group. There is no mechanism for that apparently in Germany. And what happened then is absolutely very unique. Maybe not only in Germany, maybe that applies to a lot of other countries as well, because we all have lots of associations and chambers and organizations who look after the entire value chain of construction, some of civil engineering, architects, engineers, consulting engineers, whoever they are, contractors, real estate. And in Germany what happened was that 14 of these leading national chambers, they came together and they said, well, if government is not able to put this task force in place, we will do it. And they put money on the table, and they started this limited company, Plan and Bauen 4.0, and now they are all the 14 stakeholders, including Building Smart, as you can see. And this is the organization where I'm now the interim chairman. So the biggest difference to the UK task group is, at the moment, this organization has no government funding. So it's completely industry funded, and this is why we call it the bottom-up approach. The mission, however, of this organization is very similar to the task group. The mission is to coordinate and accelerate the implementation of BIM in Germany, to reduce the overlap and identify gaps and activities, to prioritize and delegate tasks, and be the focal point of communication. So the organization itself, as I said, is a limited company, so it is a professional organization at one hand, but on the other hand, it is a non-for-profit organization. That is written into the contract, into the preamble of the contract, and is meant to be non-for-profit. So it's completely reliant on the resources from the 14 stakeholders and from the industry, but ultimately also from eventually some funding from the government. And the outputs that this company generates are meant to be sustainable and general, understandable and compliant, and non-proprietary. So we have already have achieved some quick wins, and they're very important. So we have a professional organization in place now. We have the buy-in from the entire construction value chain, which is a huge benefit, because it stops, well, doesn't completely stop, but limits the fighting between them. And we do have from the public sector clients, mostly this Ministry for Transport and Digital Infrastructure. But now the actual work begins, and this is a huge amount of work that we have ahead of us. So first of all, we need to align various strategies. So we have in Germany what we call the Energiewende, you may have heard of. So Germany is pulling out of nuclear and is putting all the efforts into renewable energies. One of the three pillars of this strategy is more energy efficient, a more energy efficient built environment. So that the whole energy strategy cannot be achieved without the construction industry. And there are some others related to sustainability and other targets. There is the high-tech agenda, there is the digital agenda in Germany, and at the moment they're not very well aligned. So that's one of the tasks that we have. Business model refers to the business model of the company itself. As I said, it's a limited company, and normally they are not non-for-profit. They're meant to generate turnover and profit from the market, which is not, we can't do that at the moment, because we are setting the rules. We are explaining how and where this is going in the future, and we cannot at the same time make profit from the rules that we define. That's a conflict. So we need to find other ways of keeping this limited company alive and getting some or generating some income, and somehow deal with this conflict. Then we need to look at standards, we need to increase general awareness, we need to develop the roadmap for Germany, we need to look at education, market implementation, in order to achieve this cultural change that the reform committee that I mentioned earlier wants us to achieve. So as I said, we have lots of activities here. At the moment, we are still a very, very small group. I'm working on this 50% of my time. My co-chairman with 25% of his time. And then we have, let's say, 5 to 6 freelancers working for us on a time basis. And that's it. So we don't even have a group of 6 or something working full time on that. So it's all part-time and very stressful, as you can imagine, because there's so many tasks. So that's why we need to prioritize what we do and how we're doing things. And what we started with was the whole awareness campaign and stakeholder engagement. So we're now traveling across the country. We're giving lots of talks, even internationally, and we're trying to get buy-in from the people on the ground and explaining them what we're doing. The second one I'm going to explain in a second. Standardization is another very, very important one. Just very quickly, when you look at standards and how standards work, and that's just one example, there are relationships between the international standardization organizations, like ISO, the European ones, that is CEN, and then the German ones, such as in the UK, BSI, or in Germany, it's called the DIN. So there is an agreement between them that when, for example, a national standardization committee or organization makes a proposal to ISO. And if ISO decides, yeah, that's good, that's like in this example, this is the British Standard 1192 Part 2, or the PAS. And then ISO can decide, yep, that sounds like a good idea, we will make that an ISO standard. And that is currently happening with PAS 1192. That's going to be the ISO 19650. At European level, at CEN level, they can decide whether they want to adopt it or not. And in this particular case, it is very likely that there will be the European ISO 19650, as it's called, at CEN level. However, the agreement then says, once something has been mirrored or has landed at CEN level, it must be turned into a national standard within a certain time, normally 1 or 2 years. So what we are now doing, what we have already started, is a standardization committee at our national level, at Dean level, to mirror the ISO 19650. And all that work is very, very important, because if you don't engage in these processes, if you're not sending experts into at CEN level or into these ISO groups, you cannot influence what will eventually come and land in your own country. And that's why it's so important that we in Germany now, we have people at CEN level, at ISO level, and we've just decided we want to have one of the 4 secretaries at CEN level, which have just been agreed on for this 19650. That's just one example, because there are so many different standards, and that's a huge amount of work, and PB 4.0 is now paying the experts to attend these meetings and do the work. So this is just a picture where you can just see in the middle, this is where we're now placing PB 4.0 in the center to coordinate between all the different activities and their loads, and we found it very important that we have this coordination between them. So the other part is now about the implementation plan. As I said earlier, coming back to the change management theory, it's very important that you have a good plan on how you get on and how you go forward. And PB 4.0 was appointed by the ministry to develop this roadmap, and we call it the Stufenplan, because that means this is a staged plan or phased plan, and it's actually in that regard pretty similar to the UK roadmap. So let me use one example why we need this and why this is so important, and that is very that's particular the situation in Germany, but I think it is also quite similar in other countries. So I think we can all agree that this little buddy here is a dog. And I don't know how you classify dogs in a biological sense or way, but it doesn't matter. I don't need to be an expert for dogs to just be able to interpret and identify certain criteria so that I can now say, yeah, this little thingy here is a dog. And the same with the other guys here. And they all look very different. They're tall or small, but it doesn't matter, because I can always still find and identify the same criteria, and with all of them I can say, yep, they're all dogs. Now let's apply the same theory to this image here. And if you'd ask me now, Ilka, is this a BIM project? Can you tell us? My answer would be no, I can't. What I can see, the criteria are, there is a virtual model of some sort of building, and there are, I can see 2 people apparently working on that, and it's all in the digital environment, and that's all I can see. Because from all the things that we do on projects now, with the technology we have and the processes we have, so for example, in concept design and scheme design, we do parametric design, we do early stage energy modeling, rapid generation of viable options, information-based design decisions, In design and documentation, we're now using 3D object-based modeling software. We have agreed methodologies and standards, and we're now taking 2D plans and other analysis results directly out of 3D models. And we use 3D models now increasingly for coordination of our disciplines and of the design. And we use them also for clash avoidance and clash detection. And that's already happening everywhere, as you can tell, and as you can see, we combine different types of data to do 4D modeling and 5D modeling when you take time and cost into account. We take all the data now on site, on digital devices, and we do fantastic things on site with the data. And then eventually we hand over the data into operations, into facilities and asset management systems. But coming back to the question now, which of these activities define a BIM project, similar to the dog? Where is the line where someone calls something a BIM project or not? And it sounds so trivial and so simple, but in Germany it's causing a problem because people are using the term and the words, but they mean so many different things. So one person says, we've been for 10 years, and then you look behind the scenes and you look a bit further, and all they've done is 3D modeling. But when it comes to procurement and to tenders, that is then causing a real problem because we don't know what it actually means, what we're talking about. And this is one of the reasons why our politics, our politicians and everyone else felt it is really time that we develop a plan so that we have similar terminology and more clarity. So this is what this plan is about, and it has all these components that you can see here. It has a guiding principle, which is something that we adopted from the Chinese roadmap. It has some fundamentals, a vision, a definition, a reference process, a level definition, and all that together with the roadmap then, or with the time schedule becomes the plan. So the guiding principles is, as I said earlier, we want to stop this negative trend that we see in the declining productivity. We only want to stop it, we want to turn it around and increase the degree of digitization, complexity, capability and growth in Germany towards a vision. And we do it in a staged approach, and we want to have the public sector as giving the clear signal into the market. This is where we're going, get ready, follow us, or overtake us at some point if you want to, but this is what we're doing. And now you have the clarity that you need to make some good investment decisions. So some of the fundamentals, we have everywhere across the country the same debates and the same questions and some reoccurring problems and concerns by people. And so these fundamentals, some statement, they are addressing these concerns. So first of all, we want to see that this plan gets endorsed and communicated mostly by public sector procurers and the relevant associations of the construction value chain, so that, as I said, the market gets a sound basis for investment and strategic decisions. What this plan is also about is to provide sufficient time for the clients, but also the supply chain to adapt to a different way of working. One of the things that's happening at the moment is that I receive phone calls from public procurers preparing a tender for, let's say, a pretty big highways project. And they ask me, I'm just working on the tender documents, can you please tell me what I should put in for BIM? And that really worries me, because I know they're not ready to receive anything from the supply chain, and the supply chain might not be ready to deliver it. But I'm more worried about the client, because I trust the market and I trust the supply chain. They will find ways, at least some of them. But what we need is a big time now to enable the market and enable the clients. At a first target level, we don't want to introduce fundamental changes to the way how we procure, to our contracts and other policies. Because if we did that, it would only slow us down. So we need to find ways of doing things differently under the current policies that we have. We want to adopt international standards and examples, and we do. So we looked at the Chinese roadmap, obviously the UK, the Russian, the Malaysian, the Singapore, Norway, Finland, and all the others, Denmark, and just tried to find out which of these would be the best way, or which combination would be a good way for Germany. Because we need to consider that Germany is a highly fragmented market with a high proportion of small and medium enterprises. And this is where the concerns are. That's all with the small engineering and architecture enterprises they don't feel ready for digitization yet and for BIM. So what we want to achieve is consistent, appropriate, and understandable client requirements in the procurement process, which enables market growth and prevents proprietary solution. The biggest change probably will be that in the future, the clients will ask for 3D models and from deliverables derived from 3D models, and that we will start handing over digital data alongside the actual asset. The plan supports vendor-neutral, non-proprietary and independent technology, processes and solutions. That's very important because that is the only way how we can keep the pressure on the software industry up to work on the interfaces to IFC and other vendor-neutral standards. And we want, of course, the plan to be applicable for all types of projects in Germany, whether they're infrastructure or buildings, new or existing, and for the entire Federated Republic, which is also a problem in the way how Germany is organized, because normally the federated states in Germany are pretty independent, and normally they decide themselves what they want. So these are the fundamentals. We came up with a vision. We realized there is no vision for the construction industry in the digital future. It didn't exist. But again, coming back to the change management theory, without a vision, where do you know where you're going? So we developed one, and I'll quickly read it out to you. So the vision is a modern and an innovative construction industry which contributes to the development and maintenance of a sustainable and livable built environment through the delivery of high-performing assets and its digital data. Thus, the construction value chain provides a considerable contribution to the digital transformation in economy and society, addressing the challenges of the 21st century. That's our vision. We also came up with a German definition of BIM. We looked at various definitions from ISO, again UK, from the States, and we just tried to find the key words that we found are the most important ones, like collaborative, process, asset data, digital models, management of information, life cycle. We just glued them together in one sentence. The reference process is also important for people to understand that BIM is all about how you generate and manage information in the planning, construction, operating process. So you probably all know the picture from PAS 1192 Part 2, which is the green and blue circles. We looked at that. You can see it here. We discussed it. We decided then it's quite complex, it's good, but we tried to come up with a slightly different version of that, which is probably not less complex, and it's also not self-explaining, because then we realized, well, the whole thing is just pretty complex, so you can't really put it in one self-explaining graphic. Anyway, what it shows is development, creation, and handover of data is a circle. It's not a linear process. It starts with employers' information requirements. That is the green bit you see here. Employers' information requirements. Then during tender process, you ask for the competence from the market and for some evidence to deliver to your information requirements. And then after procurement, or after the contract award, you see you develop your BIM execution plan.
you manage data in accordance with the ISO 19650 that I mentioned earlier, or the equivalent German standard for it, which will then be again equivalent to PAS 1192 Part 2, Common Data Environment. You can see the data drops that you're probably all very familiar with, and then there may or may not be a second round of tender, depending on whether you have a design and build or a more traditional form of contract. That is the blue bit here, where you then refine, and then from construction into operations and maintenance and eventually recycling. And that's where then the new process starts, because you want to hand over your data, your experience and everything into the new planning process, so that in theory you would hope to get the feedback loop that you want eventually. So this is the reference process, and now finally the level definition itself. We decided to define the specific criteria for technology. Technology needs to be appropriate and capable to fulfill the other requirements. That's why it doesn't need any specific ones. But when we look at data, so what we are defining here is every project needs to have specified EIRs. For the data drops, the client must ask for vendor-neutral exchange formats, such as IFC. We need to define data drops in the first point, and they should be aligned with quality gates of a project. The actual design process is still file-based in federated models, and we want to have tools to validate the data against the EIRs. The next bit, policy. As I said earlier, we're not changing our payment system, which is called the HUAI in Germany, or our stages, or the whole procurement and contract system, but we are introducing some competence criteria in the qualification process. Looking at processes, every project, must identify project-specific BIM objectives and BIM uses. That is meant to prevent the over-generation of data and to do too much just because you can. The whole reference process, as I just showed you, is based on ISO 1965 and on this file-based collaboration in the first target level. For people, we need to have the BIM roles and responsibilities defined and filled. That does not mean that we need to have a BIM manager and a BIM coordinator on every project. Again, it needs to be appropriate and in relation to the project-specific requirements, to the complexity and the size of the project. But the responsibilities need to be addressed and aligned with the existing roles. The other one is very specific for Germany. When we discussed all these criteria, we realized this is all still very technical. If we want to change people's behavior from confrontative to collaborative, it's not only going to be done by different data formats or maybe by introducing a slightly different process for generating data. We need something else. How do we change people's behavior? This was the fundamental and biggest question to the team. And then we realized that we have something in Germany, it's called the Leitbildbau. This is like a guiding principle in construction. That's a document that was developed back in 2009 from a very broad range of, associations in construction. And it addresses all sorts of behavior and other things in construction, more transparency, collaboration, better communication, better behavior, adjudication, quality, and all the other things. And after it got launched, it went very quiet around this document that had to do with a change in leadership after elections, because it was the former minister's document and baby, and the next one was just reluctant to adopt it. How ridiculous is that? Anyway, we had a change again, and now we thought it's time to pull it out of the drawer and give it the attention and support that it deserves, because it's a really good document. So we want every project to adhere to these principles, and maybe through a project charter or something like that. So last but not least, this is now the implementation roadmap. The plan, we are finalizing the plan now. We are in the final review process, and it will be launched on the 15th of December at a big launch event at the Ministry in Berlin. And between 2016, then early 2016 and 2017, this is the like a mobilization period where we do a lot of homework that we have identified through the plan, and just is the ramping up and getting ready. And from 2017 to 2020, we have an extended pilot phase. So we are, or Germany, the ministry are supporting a large or increasing number of pilot projects. Currently we have 2 big rail projects and 2 road projects. Who are very supportive of our plan and are fully aligning the rail strategy with our Germany strategy. They already told us that from 2017 on, they will start procuring. I think we have a. Do we have a connection problem? Okay. Are we okay?
I just sent you a message.
Okay. Yeah. That's the last slide. So from 2017, German Rail are going to use or procure projects after target level 1, and then from 2020, all new infrastructure projects will follow our level 1 criteria. So this was the bottom-up approach. If you have any questions later, these are my contact details from PB, and I think we can now have a Q&A session.